Welcome to day 4 of our Caribbean cruise trip. This time we're in Antigua and Barbuda. According to our tour guide on this trip, Antigua is one of the hottest islands in the Caribbean with the lowest amount of precipitation. Therefore, you have to kind of make do with what you have, especially when you have holidays coming up. The island is rich in culture, from histories dating back as early as primitive man, going through the most notable being the time of slavery in the 16th, 17th, and all the way up to the 18th century, and then into the modern times when the sugar trade was abandoned. Even with the low amount of precipitation and the heat, one of the largest crops on the island is the breadfruit, which I'm told tastes more like a potato than anything else. The construction in several of the places that we visited is older, but it is historic. The statue you see here is of the first Prime Minister of Antigua. As we headed out for a walking tour, you can see the ship that we came in on, along with several other fishing vessels within the dock area. One of the fun things to see was the island's produce, since that is what they trade in for most of their local community. There were a variety of fruits and vegetables, some with nutritional purposes and others with more medicinal purposes. A number of items were a little bit more exotic than the ones we get here in the States. And some I'd never seen at all. Perhaps even more interesting was that the trade house, where a lot of the fruits and vegetables are now stored and easily traded, used to be a slave auction house. There are so many fruits and vegetables that litter the island, but again, the heat and the humidity within the area is really oppressive, and the precipitation is not what you might think it would be. We did have the opportunity to observe a couple of churches within the area, which were very interesting and historic. And who can pass up on sports? They have a local sports arena where they do a lot of football in that area. But the biggest pastime within the island is actually cricket. Our tour guide shared with us the history of Antigua and Barbuda and why the islands were very different. Antigua was a central hub for where a lot of slave trade was done during the middle of the 17th and 18th centuries, whereas Barbuda is where they had sent skilled labor to be able to be trained, whether it was sewing, housekeeping, cooking, things like that. At one point, we were able to climb the city center to the oldest Anglican church within the island. This church has been here as early as the 1600s and is a center point for the city. And here's a beautiful interior of the Anglican church. We then made our way to the Museum of Antigua and Barbuda, which is a former auction house for slavery. On the outside of the museum, you can see several historic events, leading all the way back to the time BC, all the way up to the more recent period of full independence. Most of the prehistoric people that had come over to Antigua and Barbuda had come over from regions in South America. They made their way through using canoe systems from South America all the way up to Antigua. As was made mention earlier, cricket is the primary sport of the island, and it came about during colonization of the island from the British. While sugarcane was a primary product source on the island in slave times and was later converted to a partial sharecrop, the primary feature of the island today is through tourism. On display here you can see several of the tombstones from the 18th century and around that time. That's it for Antigua and Barbuda. Stay tuned for our next videos, and remember to make every day a travel adventure. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.